Hey guys, I'm camping up on the Mogollon Rim. In the ancient times, this was a hotbed for pottery production. A lot of really beautiful and amazing pottery was being made right in this area. And so this week, I'm camping out up here and searching for those clays. If we look at the kind of pottery they were making this beautiful whiteware pottery, and they were making these amazing redware potteries. And they were made with similar clays. Both types are formed with a gray body clay. The white is of course slipped with a white slip. The red is slipped with a yellow slip, okay? So it's red now, but it actually started out yellow. And we know that because some archaeologists have actually discovered unfired pottery in some of the ruins around here that had that yellow slip on it. And there is yellow clay in this area. Some of the redware that was made in this area also featured white slip. So we're looking for three primary ingredients today. We're looking for a good gray clay. This is a body clay, so we're looking for a clay with good hand building properties. We want it to have good wet strength. We want it to have good plasticity. We want it to feel good on our hands. We want it to come out a nice gray color out of the firing. So that's the first thing. That's probably the hardest one. The second, and possibly equally as hard, is a good white slip. Now this white slip, we don't want to easily crackle. A lot of slips, if you get them too thick, they start to crack on the pot. So we want one that maybe doesn't have a lot of shrinkage to it. But here's the real key. It needs to stay white in an oxidation firing. As you can see from these ancient pots, those white slips they were using stayed true white in oxidation. So that is important. And the third thing I'm looking for is a good yellow clay slip to cover these red areas. Something that's gonna fire to a nice bright red, and if it's a little on the orangey side, that's okay too. Come along with me. We're gonna go looking for clay this week. Let me show you what I've been doing. All day I've been working my way along this road, trying different spots along it. And it's all the right kind of formation. It's all that sort of formation where you will find clay. It has coal. There's little spots where there's coal. There's this yellow material. It's just everywhere I stop, the clay is either really gritty, got a lot of grit in it, or got a lot of iron in it. Now I found some good yellows here, and that's good. I was looking for yellow, but I also haven't been able to find any good grays or whites because everything seems to have way too much iron in it. I mean, you look at this stuff here. This is a great yellow, but you dig into it, it's not clay at all. It's really, really gritty. It's just kind of sandstone clay, you know, and it probably has some clay in it, but it's not the best stuff to use for pigment for sure, because you don't want that grit when you're trying to paint a design or you're trying to make a smooth finish on a pot. So there's a couple places I've dug down here, and I'm going to show you what I found. And I'm going to go ahead and try some of it just because it's the best I've found so far, although I'm a little apprehensive, and I'll tell you why in a second. So this slope right here is really good. This is exactly what I'm looking for. It's got the texture that tells me there's clay in here. So I've been digging a few places, and you can look in here and you can see there's clay, okay? It's got a funny kind of a shaly texture about it, but it is clay, or it has clay in it. So, I mean, that's a gray clay, but it's got all this, you see the red in it? That's iron, you know? It's got all this iron in it. And I tried to dig down to see if I can find pure, but just all the way down, there's layers of yellow. There's tons of yellow in here. If you want yellow clay or yellow pigment, see? That's good stuff. But down below that is this kind of shaly clay. Not quite that kind of soapy texture I'm looking for, but it still is clay. But like I said, it's got too much iron. I'm just not happy with it. I also, like I said, I would like that softer, little bit waxy texture that tells me it's clay, and this is just a little gritty and shaly. Now I came down a few feet and I dug again. And here I found, didn't have quite as much iron, but really, really shaly. It just doesn't really feel like clay. Now you might be able to soak it. You might be able to, you know, grind it up. But I don't want to have to go to too much effort, and I don't think the natives were either. There's good clay in this area because I found it in other places. So I'm going to keep looking. Let me show you this last spot. See, I came down a few more feet, and again, I have these layers of yellow everywhere in here. When I'm looking for gray, I don't want it contaminated with yellow. Now, when I get down in here, first of all, this stuff is really dark gray, which probably tells me that there's a lot of organic matter in it. I'm not sure that's a good thing. But it is gray, and it doesn't seem to be too contaminated, you know, with a lot of irons in it, at least not that I can see. Well, sometimes that organic matter can hide the iron contamination. And it isn't quite as shaly as that stuff above it. So this is what I'm going to try. I'm going to try this and see what I get. So my strategy out here this week is, because this is a long way from my home, I don't want to take samples and then have to come back with a bucket later. You know, it's fall. If I wait a month or two, it's going to be cold up here. You know, these roads could be icy, they could be real muddy because we're getting winter rains or snow. So I'd rather get my material now. So I'm going to try grinding this up on the site. I brought my mortar with me. I'm going to try grinding it up right here, making it into some clay, seeing how it feels, and then based on that, deciding whether or not I want to get a bucket. I am camping nearby tonight, so you know, I can come back tomorrow, but after tomorrow afternoon when I leave this area, I want to have with me the clays I want to keep. Okay, all morning I worked on that one kind of mile and a half section of road, just working my way down because there was a lot of different layers there to look at. But most of them didn't turn out to really be all that clay-like, so I only collected 3 samples. And 2 of those are ones that I mixed up that I'm going to see tomorrow how they are. Now I'm at a different place. I've driven a few miles to a different spot in the forest, and this hill is someplace I know about. I've been before, but I've never really sampled a lot of the clays here. So today I'm going to work my way down this hill. I don't know, it's maybe a quarter-mile stretch, and just look at all the clays there and take samples of all those that I think are worthwhile. Super shaly, really hard and rock-like. This is not what we're looking for. Oh my goodness, this is a steep little son of a gun right here. This feels really good. You can see there's a little bit of a reddish patina on here. So it's got some iron that's just kind of leached down from above. You can see that up above, the rocks are very red. So that's run down into here and kind of contaminated it a little. But if you break these open, it is pure white inside. And they have kind of that soft, soapy texture, which tells me it's clay. So if it comes out half as white as it looks here and is clay, that is amazing stuff. So I'm excited about that. Again, very shaly. It feels coarse. I think it could be made into clay, but it's not clay. All right, that's all I'm getting. I think I did real well today. I found and sampled 5 different gray body clays. That could be what I'm looking for. Now, as you saw, I mixed them up in a bag and I haven't tested them yet. I'm letting them sit and kind of soak up so they all get the best chance they have, you know, to be good when I test them. So tomorrow morning, I will take all 5 of those out and I will test them side by side to see which one has the best working properties. And then whichever one wins, I'm gonna go get a big 5-gallon bucket full of that stuff so I can test it over the winter. Now, it's possible I might have 2 winners tomorrow. There might be 2 or 3 clays that are that good. I hope so, but you know, it's unlikely. But perhaps, if I have more than one that's good, I will get 2 or 3 buckets of clay. And then tomorrow afternoon, I'm changing locations. These 2 days were set aside for the Mogollon Rim, but I'm on my way to the Kiln Conference right now, so I'm still moving in that direction. And there are other places I want to look for clay. There's an area east of here, near the Arizona-New Mexico border, that I've been looking at on Google Maps for a long time, and it's really rich in clays. So what I'm hoping to do is spend a couple of days over there as well before I head to Cortez for the conference. And so when I pack up camp here, I'll go get a motel so that I can clean up and charge all my batteries, and then I'll head up the next day, on Sunday, up to that area near the Arizona-New Mexico border. So that's the plan. Good morning. I got my camp all packed up, so I'm ready to test these clays and then get out on the road, collecting that clay and moving on to my next site. I'll tell you the impact yesterday's work had on me. I was working hard from about 9 in the morning until about, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Going hard at it, sampling clays, collecting clays, all that. And I'm not used to working that hard and that long, manual labor. I burned my forearms because my sleeves were rolled up. That's how much sun I got. Imagine how burned my nose or my ears or the back of my neck would be without my hat. And then I got a nasty blister from digging with the shovel or the rock hammer. Nasty blister that is going to take a while to heal. And because I'm camping, I got to work extra hard at keeping that clean so it doesn't get infected. So that's where I'm at. Okay, let's do these in order. So Upper Cottonwood was where I went first. Upper Cottonwood, dark gray, and then gray 2. So these are the ones from Upper Cottonwood. These are up the road I'm camping on. One of these was real gritty when I was mixing it up. I think it's this one. It does feel fairly strong in plastic. I'm gonna set that aside. That is the gray number 1, and here is gray number 2 from this same area. Is this gonna be too wet? Oh no. This is the one that's super gritty. This is nothing. This is just like wet mud. This is no good. This number 2. Number 2 is worthless. Number 1 is a contender. So we got Bailey number 1. It might be a little damp. I mean, it feels a little damp, like it needs to dry out some. Fairly smooth. But because it's so damp, it's hard for me to know how it's doing on wet strength, because the wetter a clay gets, the less strength it has. I'm going to let this sit out and kind of air out a little bit, and hopefully it will improve a little or dry out some. And this one seems like it, again, pretty wet, but real soft. I'd rather have a firmer clay for building. I'm going to let that sit too. 4. This has a definite kind of yellowish color to it. You can see that. It looks yellowy, and it would probably fire a little on the pink or orange side, I'm sure, because of that. Again, too damp. Doggone it. Why was that gray number 1 so perfectly blended and this stuff is all too damp? I'm going to let this stuff sit out and air a little bit. I decided, instead of sitting at my camp and waiting for that clay to dry, I liked that first sample enough that I wanted to come up here and get a bucket. So I thought, I'll leave those air and dry in the back of my truck while I drive up there. So now I'm up where I collected that first sample. Now, I collected samples all along this road. And so it'd be hard for me to come back even the next day and go, oh, this is where that sample came from. I dug too many places. And if I looked for places I dug, I can't find those either because there's places I've dug everywhere. So I'll tell you a little trick I do. I take a picture with my iPhone of the clay after I dig it, and that saves the GPS coordinates. So then I can go into my phone, I can open it up, I can click on that little map, I can click info, I can click on that little map, and then I can click the little arrow button to show me where I'm at, and I can walk right to that clay source using that map and GPS. So that works really good. So because of that, I know that the place where I dug that clay is right there. So now I'm going to go get a bucket and fill it up. There it is. It's amazing the amount of yellow in there. It's all spread throughout. So I'm going to have to go through and pick out that yellow, or just assume that the clay is going to come out of the fire red or some shade of red. Also, never leave a hole like that on the side of the road. Fill it in, make it look natural. That way people don't hate people that gather clay. Okay, storm's coming, but let's talk real fast about those clays I was letting dry. Here's Bailey number 1, which dried out pretty good. It's a good clay. It's got a lot of plasticity, but it's very soft. Because it's so soft, can be hard to make a large form out of. It's going to want to slump. Has very little wet strength. I really love the plasticity. I think I'm going to pass on Bailey 1. There's Bailey 3. A little different color. Again, just a little soft. You can see it's crackling a little bit. That tells me that I added too much temper. Of course, I wasn't even measuring it. I was just eyeballing it and throwing some in. But see how it crackles real easy when I try to bend it or stretch it? That tells you there's too much temper in it. So again, a little soft. Might be worth trying with less temper. The last one is Bailey 4. Again, a little different shade. This one's a little more that yellow/green color. And again, it's kind of softer than I'd like it to be. So it's a pass on the first one from Bailey. It's a maybe on the second one, and it's no on the third. So I might go out and get some of this. I'm just not sure. Depends on the weather. I tell you what, I'll drive over that way, and if it's pouring down rain, you know, I won't. But if it is good, I'll get a bucket. Well, I got the clay, but I didn't have time to get the camera out. When I got there, it hadn't rained, but you know, the thunderclouds were threatening, and it kept rumbling, and I thought, I'm going to hurry up and get this clay before it starts raining. So now I'm just trying to get out this dirt road before it starts raining, because I imagine with all the clay down here, it could get pretty slick when it gets wet. And then I'll head into town and have some food and whatnot, and I will catch up with you tomorrow out in the desert near the Arizona-New Mexico border, where we're going to be camping and looking for clays, slip clays this time. Good morning. Welcome to my second camp. Today, I'm in East Central Arizona. I'm just east of St. John's, Arizona, real close to the New Mexico border. Before, I was on the Mogollon Rim between Show Low and Heber, Arizona. And so, totally different area, but culturally similar. And specifically that area where I was earlier, that's where they were making those late White Mountain red wares, things like Pinedale polychrome and 4 Mile polychrome. This area here is where they were making a lot of those early White Mountain red wares, things like Wingate black on red, St. John's black on red, but also those Cibola white wares, like your Reserve black on white and your Tularosa black on white. So this was the area, the general area. It's a broad area. I'm looking for those slip clays, the ones that would make those nice whites for the Cibola whiteware and those nice kind of orangey reds for the White Mountain red wares. Where I'm camping here is close to some badlands where there looks like there's some good clays. This is just looking from like Google Earth, so it's hard to know until I get out there, but it looks like a good area to explore for clays. So I plan on spending the whole day over there exploring for clays in that area, not very far from here, and then I'll leave my camp set up. I'll camp here again tonight, and then tomorrow I'll start heading more to the east and north to get to the Kiln Conference, and I'll be looking for clays along the way there. Oh, one more thing. Yesterday I stayed in a hotel in Springerville, and while I was there I took that clay that I'd mixed up from the Mogollon Rim, and I formed a couple little pinch pots. And I let them dry. And yesterday afternoon, they were sitting in the back of my truck drying, and they looked pretty good. I mean, they were drying up real good. They hadn't cracked, and I was excited about it. And so I thought, well, when I get out to my camp, maybe I'll fire these. Well, I shouldn't have just left them rolling around in the back of my truck, because coming up the dirt road, everything in the back of the truck shifted around, and they got squashed. And so I found sherds when I got here. What I actually fired were these little sheep effigy pots that we made in the Ancient Potters Club in September. And, you know, it was a little bit of a sooty firing, you can see, because there's a lot of black marks on these. But also, you know, the sherds from the clay from the White Mountains also are a little dark. But you can tell that they are firing to a whitish or, you know, a light gray color. So that's good. That's what we were looking for, was that color. I really didn't fire them hot enough to get this gray clay to mature. It's still quite fragile. So usually like brown and red clays, you can mature them in the 700 to 800 degree range, which is probably where I was. You know, these white or gray clays, they take more temperature to mature, probably 850 or above. And so I didn't fully fire them, but I was able to see the color, because a lot of times gray clay kind of hides the natural color of the clay. So like when I'm digging clay and I'm digging red clay, I'm usually pretty confident that it's going to fire red. And if I dig brown clay, I'm pretty confident it's going to fire brown. But gray, a lot of times that dark gray color is caused by organic matter, which could be hiding the minerals that are actually there. So it's not until you fire it a little bit that you can see, you know, what color it's going to come out. And this is going to be a light gray color, which is exactly what I'm looking for. All right, let's get over there and start looking for clay. Bad news. I walked all the way in here and it's not clay. It's some kind of tough, like compressed volcanic ash. That's really the problem with scouting for clay locations using satellite photography. Sometimes it can help, but sometimes it can get you into these remote areas where there's no clay. It looked really good. Even as I got close and approached the mountain, it looked like a thick band of white clay. You could see it kind of eroding down the hill. It was all white below it, and I thought, oh, that's going to be good. And then there was a gray layer above it, which also looked interesting, but both seemed to be some sort of tough. So I'm going to keep going. There's more country up ahead of me, and hopefully there'll be some more clay. So far, 0. Well, I found clay. Not what I'm looking for. It's purple clay. It's an interesting color, but purple clay usually fires brown, so definitely not what I'm looking for. But it is the first clay of the day. All right, green clay now. The green clay is right above that purple clay, strangely enough. It is odd to me that green and purple clays are often found near each other in nature. If anybody knows why that is, leave a comment. But green clay usually fires yellow, or maybe a little bit yellowy orange color. Again, nice to know, but not what I'm looking for. All right, I've driven way up this road, and the road doesn't go anywhere near the Badlands, unfortunately. They're to my west a little bit, so the road seems to avoid them. And, you know, road builders avoid clay soils for obvious reasons, so it kind of makes sense. But the only way in is going to be to hike in. So I'm getting my backpack ready, grab the camera, and I'm going to hike in, see if I can find some clays in there. Okay, I've hiked down into this area, but I don't think the geology is right now that I've got here. Most of the clays I can see down here are like reds, purples, kind of dark grayish blue, just really not those whites and yellows I'm looking for. Different geology. This bluff over here, you can see there's a white streak up high in it. That is the same layer that I looked at earlier this morning that was tough. Other than that, you can see this bluff over here, lots of reds and purples. I can see down in this little basin over here, again, kind of purples and blues. You know, every place I look seems to be red, purple sort of colors. So I'm just not seeing anything white or yellow or even remotely similar. So I think I'm going to go back to my truck and try to find a better area to explore. All right, well, that area was a total wash. It looked really good on the satellite images. In real life, not so much. Purple clays and a lot of dirt and rocks. So, you know, it goes to show, it really does help looking at satellite photos, but you got to get out there on the ground, and it may not be what it appears. So what I did was I came back, I packed up my camp, and I'm going down the road. I was going to stay another night, but there's no point in sitting around all afternoon doing nothing. So I'm heading on towards the Zuni Salt Lake. And I just crossed the state line into New Mexico. Very bumpy road, so I apologize if the camera footage is shaky. This is about as remote a country as you're going to find in the entire Southwest. I've driven for hours along this road and haven't passed another vehicle the whole time. The road itself is built on this clay soil. They haven't made any attempt to put down any gravel or anything. You sure wouldn't want to come out here when it was wet. And if you got caught out here in a rainstorm, you might be stuck for a long time. That being said, it is beautiful country, just gorgeous. Unfortunately, all the clays in those hills, those purples and grays, are not the colors I'm looking for. And they all apparently get washed down onto this plain. This entire plain seems to be covered in some form of clay. The road has thousands of washouts where you have to take it real slow to keep from damaging your vehicle. So don't be in a hurry if you come back here. But it is a great drive if you have the time and the vehicle for it. Okay, I just stopped here on the side of the road because the road was going past this hill, and there's an obvious Pueblo ruin on top of this hill. These things are really easy to spot. Down in my country, ruins are made out of adobe, and they melt into these kind of hard to recognize just lumps of mud. But a stone Pueblo maintains a lot more of its shape and size when it collapses. And so you can come up this little hill, and there's pottery all over this ground. I'll show you some. There's a piece of redware right there. Painted on the inside. That's a piece of sandstone. There's a piece of corrugated. There's some whiteware pottery, and it is also painted. That's reduced iron black, most likely. There's another piece of redware. Small. No decoration on it. This shows what I was talking about, how it's actually made from a white or a light gray paste. The actual body clay is a light colored clay, and then that red is just a slip on top of it. Most likely a yellow slip, actually. Now we're on top of the hill, and you can see that pile of stones, which is the edge of the Pueblo. I'm standing on top of the hill outside of the walls. And then as we approach the walls, oh, here's a big piece of redware. Look at that. See the design in there? It needs some cleaning up. It's been buried for a long time. You know, but it's got a nice design, black on red, and again that light colored body clay and that kind of orangey red slip on the inside and the outside. There's a piece of white right there. And look at pull tab. All right, so you can see the stones here. These were actually what the walls of the Pueblo were formed from. And if you get up on top of these, you can see that it's really not a big Pueblo. It's just a handful of rooms. So I don't know, maybe a family lived here. And then here's the other wall going down the other side of the Pueblo ruin. And that's it. Now here's the top of the hill outside the Pueblo. There's what the walls look like. A piece of whiteware, decorated. A nice piece of corrugated here. Here's a nice whiteware, decorated whiteware. Here's a piece of redware. Look at that one. Isn't that nice? There's that kind of orangey color I've been talking about. That's what I'm hoping to find. Something fires to that bright orange color that we have right there. That's probably St. John's, either black on red or polychrome. This site would probably date to the late 1100s to the early 1200s, based on the pottery here. So I've made it to Zuni Salt Lake. This is a little island of Zuni reservation. Well, this isn't. I'm standing on BLM land, but the lake itself is a little island of Zuni reservation, far from the main body of the Zuni reservation. They make pilgrimages here to collect salt, and so do the Hopis, I'm told. Anyway, I thought it was interesting. Little spot. No clay here, obviously, but the lake is interesting. So the question I get asked most often is, how do I learn this stuff? How do I learn to find and process wild clay like you do? Well, I learned over the course of, like 30 years of trial and error. Not the way I would recommend anybody learn. It takes a long time, it's frustrating, not the best results, it takes a long time to make progress. But that was before the internet. I mean, today it's easy to find people to teach you, whereas when I was learning back in like the 90s before the internet, I didn't know anybody that could teach me. So there's a few people who teach in-person workshops, and that's a great way to learn if that's for you. I teach in-person workshops twice a year, but those workshops, they cost a bit of money. They fill up rather quickly. So I'll put in the doobly-doo some links to my own as well as some other people around the United States that teach workshops where you can learn this kind of stuff. But really, the best way that's available to you today are online masterclasses where you can learn how to find and process wild clay at a time and place convenient for you, from your home, from your cell phone, while you're riding the bus, whatever. And those are great. I have one, Wild Clay 101, that doesn't cost very much money and really teaches you everything you need to know to do this. Great value, I think. To go the next step, the better value yet is Ancient Potters Club. So the Ancient Potters Club is my weekly Zoom-based pottery class. We get together over Zoom every week to make pottery, Every month we do a different project. Ancient Potters Club members have access to all 4 of my online master classes, so you're welcome to take those as well. Plus, come to the Zoom class weekly where we not only make pottery, but we discuss problems we're having, problems with clay or problems with tempering or firing. And so you're able to work out problems that you come across while you're doing it. And so that's really the best way to learn from anywhere. I have students all over the world in the Ancient Potters Club. So I'll put links to people that teach in-person workshops, online masterclass, and Ancient Potters Club down in the doobly-doo. So check that out if you're interested in learning more. All right, it's a new day, and what better place to end this clay expedition than here at Merino Hill. There's a lot of good clays here. In fact, let's play a game. Let's play Wild Clay Bingo. I don't know what you've got on your bingo card, but mine has gray body clay, white clay slip, yellow clay slip, and how about throw in a pigment mineral? So if I can get all 4 of those, I get a bingo, okay? I think this is one of those rare places around the Southwest where you could make polychrome pottery using just materials from this location. There are a lot of little hidden gems, little small veins of clay here and there all over this hill. So let's get out there and get started because I've got to end up all the way up in Cortez, Colorado by the end of the day. I collected clay in this area last year, but this stuff right up under this rock has a real nice yellow color. You see that? It's got a great kind of orangey yellow color. So this will be pretty good stuff. Remember that yellow clay usually fires red. In fact, in my experience, yellow clay more often fires a brighter red than any red clays. I don't know anything about the geology or the chemistry there that makes that so, but that's what experience has told me. Now some of this material kind of tends towards green. Yeah, and I'm getting into a little more greenish material now. And that's okay. Green clays usually fire yellow, so if you get into green, you know, if it's a little bit greenish yellow, the material you're gathering, the clay will probably fire more of an orange color. See, that's all a little not quite as bright, like right up in here. See, there's the real bright yellow stuff. Some of this is brighter yellow than others, so kind of like what I did on the Mogollon Rim, you can kind of pick little pieces that are the right color you're looking for, but the more picky you get, the longer it's going to take you to do it. Because it's just for slip, you know, a quart Ziploc like this could last you for literally years. All right, I'm going to call that good. That's just about a full quart Ziploc full of yellow clay. I'm still going to keep my eyes open for yellow as I go up. This place is famous for its yellow. There's a lot of different shades of yellow. But at this point, I'm also going to focus more heavily on those other areas. That's that white slip clay, a gray body clay. Now, I don't have time to test a gray body clay. I just want to see if I can find something that would be suitable in that area. And then a pigment mineral, okay? All right, I've moved up the hill a little bit, and there are some interesting colors here. That area right there, there's some good kind of orangey yellows in there. You see those? But you would have to have an extension ladder to reach that. Now most of this area kind of leans towards green yellow. But as I get down the bluff here, you'll see there's quite a bit of kind of light grays. Those light grays are good prospects for white clay. If you can get some that looks like it's not contaminated with any of that yellow or red colors, which kind of will seep into them sometimes. So I'm looking for a good, pure, light colored clay. And I'll take gray. It doesn't have to be pure white because a lot of times that gray is just organic matter that'll fire out. All right, look at this. This is just the kind of stuff you would want to gather for a gray body clay. Big, hard chunks of clay material. This is probably the kind of stuff that would make a good body clay. But you don't know, right? Just like the tests I did on the Mogollon Rim. You don't know until you test it. You have to process a little bit. You need to make a little pot. You need to fire that pot. Make some determinations on whether it's good. Maybe collect gray clays from around this area and do that to all of them and then pick the best. But this is definitely a contender. This is something that I would pick up for that. Now, I'm not collecting this today. And the reason is I have this 4-hour rule. I won't collect body clays more than 4 hours from my home. And the reason is I don't want to like them too much. If I get a body clay that's really awesome and I love it, then I'm going to feel compelled to go back and collect all the time. And if it's more than 4 hours from your house, that's like an overnight trip, And there's good clays near me, so I just kind of focus myself to 4 hours. Otherwise, I end up making unnecessary trips. So with slip clays, that's different. I can take a Ziploc bag full of slip, and it could potentially last me for years. So I will collect slip clays all over, and that's what I'm doing here today. I'm looking for white and yellow. The gray was just something to see if I could find something that I thought was a good body clay here, because I think this is like Polychrome Mountain. I think you could make polychrome pottery just from materials found on this hill. And the best thing about this clay, if it turns out to be good, is that it's right next to the road. You could literally pull a truck right up here next to it and shovel it into the back. When you're weighing, good clays, what makes good clay? Plasticity, wet strength, things like that. How accessible it is should be one of those things you weigh as well. Well, I did pretty good on the clays. Unfortunately, I didn't fill my bingo card out because I didn't find any pigment mineral. I did find some iron concretions, but they were just too hard. They wouldn't scratch when rubbed on a rock. There may still be some up in these hills somewhere. I don't have time to hike all over the place looking for it. I have to get to Cortez, Colorado for the Kiln Conference, which is in just a couple of days. So I'm gonna head up there. If you'd like to see that last video where I went clay hunting on the Mogollon Rim, I'll link that up right over here. So you can go check that out and do some more clay hunting with me, and I'll get on my way to Cortez. Thanks for coming with me today. I'll catch you next time.